right. Good evening, 48 Blocks, Atlantic City. And my name is Raymond Tyler. I am a writer for Shore Local Magazine, as well as Atlantic County Magazine, radio producer, part-time poetry workshop facilitator, and full-time arts curator. I want to thank Joyce and Michael for asking me to curate this evening's poetry reading. And I am so honored to be a part again of 48 Blocks. Usually they just consign me to DJing, but tonight I actually get to share some poetry. And I get to share poetry with two of my best poetry friends, both of whom I've known over 10 years. And so first up, I'd like to introduce you ladies first to 𝗬𝗏𝗄𝐽𝐻. And I always wonder if I'm pronouncing that name like right, close to right, or just way wrong.
You're doing it perfect, Ray. You're one of the few people who has it down. I always say Emory, like the university or the nail file. So you have it.
Okay. She is a professor of literature, poetry, writing. I first met her, I believe she was, now what was that? Were you working at ACC or just?
I was an adjunct. I was teaching both at ACCC and at Stockton University at the same time. So that was right after I finished up my graduate work, and I was juggling a bunch of jobs. But yeah, you met me when I was teaching both at ACCC and Stockton.
Right. So back when they used to have this thing in the newspaper, you remember newspapers, it tell you things that are going on during the week. It said that there was a midweek, midday poetry workshop going on for free, and anybody could come. And I guess she was expecting mostly her, students from ACC, but I showed up, and we've been quick friends ever since. And so she's gonna, no pressure, but she's gonna dazzle you and amaze you with her poetry stylings this evening. The other gentleman the other person I would like to introduce is a gentleman I've known, like I said, for more than 10 years. I met him back when Borders, you remember Borders and bookstores, right? They had hired me to do a weekly workshop, and Cole was one of the few people who came every week. And it was two people, it was Cole and Michael, and we'll talk a little bit about this a little bit later on. They were the only two people who were not scared to or intimidated to criticize my poetry just because it had a political bend. And I could tell when I had other people, especially non-Black people there, they would be sitting there thinking, like, can I criticize this? Or, because he's talking about being Black, and I encouraged them. And Cole and Michael, we rip it apart. So, and I love it. So I'm so excited to hear what everybody has today as we have this poetry roundtable. And I want to thank you both for, taking time out of your busy schedule to stop by.
Thanks.
Okay, so the way this works is we step up, we share a poem, and then we discuss the poem, and then we move on to another writer. After everybody goes through, I'll throw out a general question for discussion. We'll discuss that a little bit, and then we'll continue to move on. So I guess since I was nominated to put this together, I'll break the ice. And I only say that because normally we can have a poetry reading in a back alley somewhere next to the abortion woman, and nobody would still want to go first. So I'll go ahead and break the ice. This is called Those That Said Nothing. It was inspired by a friend of mine named Amira Shabazz. but this is called Those That Said Nothing. Like to hear it, here it go. Pray for those that say nothing. They're watching fear as the lynching goes down. They are not devil enough to hold the rope. Their soul is not soiled enough to put the knee on some mother's child's neck. They are not so sad that they would pull you over just for being Black. But pray for those that have spent all of eternity straddling fences, playing both sides, so that they will never come down squarely on one side or the other. They fool no one but themselves. And how big a fool is the fool that hides the truth about himself from himself. Pray for every white person who honestly said, some of my best friends are Black, and they refused to vote one way or the other, or asked if the vote was going to be recorded at the school board meeting before they voted, or abstained. I would say there is a special place in hell for those that counted themselves good, but never raised a voice or took a stand. But life has taught me that they too often do not have to wait for Judgment Day before their chickens find their way to their homes, to their sons and daughters. You see, life has a way of making you choose sides. In fact, not choosing is always one of the clearest choices of what you believe in and what you will fight for and who you will fight for and why you will fight. So pray for me this week. Pray for me this week that the fights will come and I will have to choose which direction to swing my fist or not swing at all. So that's that one. Oh, snaps? Okay. What did you think, Professor?
One of the things I love about your work, Ray, is that there's a way in which you invite big thinking into a poem, so that the poem is actually a kind of invitation for readers, for people to think about their own, this particular one, the ways in which they choose or do not choose to get involved. And so your poems ask these big questions, but they don't block readers out. They invite them in, and they invite them in a, I'm gonna say, and you're gonna laugh at this, but they actually invite them in a kind of warm way, like, you know, let's sit down, let's talk about this. So even the poems that are what I'm going to call your most passionate poems are always a conversational kind of way that invites a dialogue with the reader. And so this poem does exactly that. The end of the poem is so strong. I love that ending too. So those are, you know, my high praise.
Thank you. Yeah, because what people don't know is that every poem that I write about going one way or the other, I've stood at the crossroads and had to pick what direction I was going to go in. But it's funny that you say what you said about inviting the reader in. I can remember, and I talked about this on my Meet the Artist, I can remember being a sophomore in high school and hearing that we had to study Julius Caesar, and I was so underwhelmed at the time. I thought in all my sophomore 15, 16, 17-year-old wisdom, I thought Shakespeare was overrated. I laugh now. But I had a teacher, Miss Eileen Martin, who, first of all, she drew me in because she was so passionate about it that I got interested in it. But when after she broke it down, you realize that Julius Caesar is not about the emperor of Rome. It's about anybody who's ever been a dog catcher and his friend has been sitting on the sideline saying, He thinks he's so cool because he's a dog catcher. And so that's sort of one of the things that I want my poetry to do, to be able to be relatable and not push people out and say, well, you know, I'm attacking you. But sometimes it does attack, but, you know, thank you. What were your thoughts, Cole?
Well, first of all, I'd like to make a personal disclaimer for anybody watching me. You'll get the wrong impression. I appear to be sitting here stone-faced and frowning, but I have a physical, medical problem, and smiling is actually very, very difficult for me. But anybody knows me knows that I am one big smile, and I'm jealous of Emery's ability to keep that constant smile going, because that's what I'd like to do, and that's what I did before my surgeries. But anyway, you know, I'm very happy. I'm always happy, Ray. You know that. I'm never depressed. So after saying that, that being said, rather, to your poem, I personally identify as a person who has been shy all my life until now, until just recently. My wife said when she started poetry, just never shut up, and it's kind of true. Yeah, a person who's been shy and introverted and always retreating into myself and straddling fences. So I identify with that completely. But if you are that type of person, which I definitely am not now, for the last 5-6 years or so, you live life as a cipher, and it's not a fun place to be. Just afraid that you not saying anything because you're afraid that you're going to offend someone. You're a person without substance. So since the last 5-6 years, since I've really gotten into poetry, I've been trying to make up for lost time. And your poem is kind of an invitation to someone like me to stop straddling that fence, you know, to stop, to live your life. And that's what I got from that poem. I completely identify, Ray. My former self completely identifies with that.
Well, thank you. I'll just add this. I have another poem where I wrote from the perspective of the fence straddler, and he says, you know, I sing the song that everybody's singing, even when I want to sing something else. And I couldn't imagine living my life, as bad as I sing, and I sing horribly, I couldn't imagine living my life just going along with the crowd and always singing somebody else's song, always singing the Beatles when I know I want to sing Paul McCartney or John Lennon or something like that. So, well, thank you both. And now, Professor, would you step up to the mic and share a poem with us, please?
Sure. I'm going to share a new poem that I haven't read publicly yet. So this is a 48 blocks showcase right now. Right now, I've been trying to write into my background as an Italian American growing up in South Jersey, who has inherited all of the privileges of whiteness, and who has, been othered by white people based on my skin color and where I grew up. And I've been trying to reconcile those in my writing. And I have this new poem that is actually on the page, it looks like a recipe. And maybe when I'm done reading, I'll do a quick screen share if I can to show people what it looks like. But it's called Assimilation, Italian Style. The most delicate assimilation, as it is the youngest and most tender, is the child's. Adult assimilation is more laborious and may require more than one serving. However, it also has a more powerful effect. Quantities and cooking times. Allow ½ pound per serving. Before cooking, wash the tongue, brush it, and soak it in cold water for several hours, changing a number of times. An adult tongue weighs about 2.5 ounces and cooks in 1 to 1.5 hours. A child's tongue can be removed as soon as 8 teeth are present. Tongue removal can be performed by a doctor, butcher, or most matriarchs with a freshly sharpened chef's knife. Sambuca or anesthesia recommended. If there are too few adults in the household to constitute a full course of assimilation, you may substitute the tongue of any olive-skinned friend, neighbor, or coworker. Note, when substituting tongues, properly dispose of the rest of the body. To boil tongue, immerse in cold salted water with an onion, celery stalk, carrot, and a few cloves. When cooked, drain and skin. Tongue should always be served with the dominant Anglo-Saxon spices of the region. Braised assimilation. Parboil the tongue in salted boiling water for 20 minutes, then drain and skin, lifting the edges with a box cutter and pulling from the root towards the tip to remove the toughest outer layer. Take care not to leave any taste buds. Meanwhile, heat the butter and oil in a pan, add the onions and carrots, and cook over low heat, stirring occasionally for 5 minutes. Add the tongue, cook and cover for 30 minutes. Pour the wine in the front yard or on the sidewalk. Cross yourself. Mash the tomatoes and their canned juices and add to pan. Cover and simmer for about 1 hour or until the tongue is tender. Ladle the cooking juices into a food processor and puree. Slice tongue diagonally and serve with hot puree over baked potatoes. Season lightly with salt and pepper. If there is not enough to serve everyone, be sure the children eat first. So I'll do a screen share so you can see the poem as well. Here's the wonders of a Zoom reading today, where you can actually see the work. So it's set up just like a recipe at the top with its quantities and cook times. And then its recipe and ingredients.
That's amazing.
So.
And you say you call that assimilation Italian style?
Yeah.
I like braised assimilation. Wow, that is an amazing piece. So my first question is, why dispose of the rest of the body after you take the tongue?
Well, that's only if you're substituting other people. You know, ideally you'd have enough in the household to feed everyone, but not every household will have enough to feed everyone. And it's kind of gruesome. It's the notion of that, you know, in order to assimilate, to become part of this idealized culture, and I'm, you know, air quoting that, you have to give things up. People are sacrificed. Cultures are sacrificed. Entire parts of people are sacrificed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Literally in the poem, but
right.
You know,
well,
sometimes it's literal as well in our own lives.
Well, literal is such a definitive word. And so a lot of times when people say, you know, I literally talked for 1,000 years, you didn't literally talk for 1,000 years, but it literally seemed like 1,000 years. So I get it. Here's the other thing. You grabbed me right from the start. This is what you did to me, because you said delicate assimilation. You're taking like assimilation is, to me, is an act of war. And so before you even get there, the first word that you tried out is delicate. I'm like, wow. See, that's how you poet right there. That's how you poet. All right, Cole, what do you have to say?
Well, you know, just a story, just a brief anecdote. Once I asked Emery, your husband's a skateboarder and a surfer, is that correct?
That's
and your daughter is a professional snowboarder?
She's pretty impressive, yes.
I mean, she's a professional, right?
Well, she competes at this age, so I wouldn't call her professional yet, but she's a competitive snowboarder. There we go.
And how old is she?
7.
And 7, and a surfer.
Yes.
Okay, so I said to Emery, I said, your husband and your daughter, I said, adrenaline junkies. I said, you're the only one in the family who isn't. And she looks at me and she said, have you ever read my poetry? And I said, well, yeah, I'm sorry. So I've been calling her fearless leader ever since. Yeah, what I love about Emery's poetry is she starts off at a precipice. Her conceits are, they leave her nowhere to go. They're dangerous, they're death-defying. And I always say, even though I've read the poem before, I always say, well, how is Emery going to get out of this one? And she relies on her skill to, I guess she's challenging herself, and she relies on her immense skill to get her out of that situation. And here again, she's doing the same thing. It's amazing, it's awesome, and I'm learning from her to be more fearless, to be more reckless, and I'm taking that on just recently, I guess in the last year, but I think partially and to a big degree because of the influence of Emery. Thank you very much for that, Emery.
Oh, thank you so much, you both. Wow. I should tell you that this poem came out of a great workshop I took online through Murphy Writing. So a little shout out to Murphy Writing that has had some great events going on as part of 48 Blocks. 𝗘𝘃𝗃 hosted a formal poetry workshop, and one of the assignments was to look at forms inspired by, you know, other textual items. And I've written recipe poems before, and I don't really know what came over me, but I started thinking about, you know, one of the things about assimilation, about, you know, our identities has so much to do with our language. And then I thought, oh, tongue, oh, there's a recipe. What if I went there? So Cole, I'm always trying to be braver and gutsier on seeing where it can go too. So I'm re-inspired to keep doing that by you. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was reading a literary journal on the submission page, and it said, before you submit, look at our previous issues, and whatever you see, we don't want that. We want something different. If we want something that you don't see, and Emery is going to give you something that you don't see every day. I'm trying to get there.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you, Cole. Let's see how you tried, because now it's your turn up to bat.
Okay. This one, I wrote this in the past week. The N-word. Because of the execution of George Floyd, I am haunted by the vulnerable ubiquity of necks. It seems everyone has one, even babies. I remember my father showing me how to shave my neck, and I went to school bleeding. In the backseat of an Impala at a Vampire drive-in, Tyra Graham left marks on my neck like sexual graffiti. I looked like Humphrey Bogart in The African Queen, emerging from the muck covered in leeches. My wife leaves for work accessorized with a choker. She asks why I avert my eyes. Most believe the elongated neck of giraffes was evolved to eat with ease leaves of trees unreachable to others. However, it's more the case of a fight for rights to mate. Long necks are wrapped in rock-hard skulls, slung, sometimes breaking bones. I marvel at the strong hearts pushing blood up those elevators. When wolves fight, it's not to the death. The vanquished submit by exposing their jugular neck to a killing bite, never taken, because wolves, be they black or white, unlike cops, have no concept of color supremacy. 1880 to 1940 is known as the hanging years, when over 5,000 Blacks were strung up by their necks, with picnicking audiences of thousands cheering Christmas trees decorated in hell. A thick 10-inch scar like a noose burns my neck due to 2 surgeries where fibulas from both legs were transplanted to my face to replace a jaw compromised by a constellation of tumors. Both times the procedures failed, but I am grateful. Unlike George, I can still breathe.
That was stunning, Cole. Whew.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. Do you have to, you talking first, Ray? I don't want to.
I'll let you go first this time.
Cole, what's incredible? I mean, that whole poem is incredible, but you start us, with the current event, and then you keep turning the poem through all these images of beauty, from decorative neck to the animals, and then it turns even further into from the mating to what violence is there, and then you turn back to the current event, to the moment, and then you turn it further to the self. So the poem keeps turning in all these gorgeous ways. It's just stunning. And then of course the closing line is incredibly powerful. So it's a poem full of this beauty and gratitude at the same time as it's a poem it's an ode to loss at the same time. That was incredible.
Thank you, Emery.
To piggyback on what she said, it's, you give us all these beautiful images and then you smash them in order to make us, like the image of your wife in a choker could be used for any other type of poem, but you snatch that image to make us look and think about George Floyd. And so it's perfect metaphor, because you're not saying George Floyd is like, or comparing him to anything. You're just letting the story continue to evolve and tell itself. I really, really like this piece.
Thank you so much. I'd like to ask a question about this, get your opinion.
Sure.
The title, the N-word. We're in such a heightened, racialized, and sensitized and politicized time now, especially with poetry, that I am afraid of the title as far as submissions go. And there was a controversy not that long ago with Michael Dickman, and the editor-in-chief of Poetry, and he had a couple lines in a poem which I thought were innocuous. He referred to a Black woman as a negress, and I think in the poem he was talking about his mother, who had Alzheimer's, and she was she had some racist thoughts, I imagine. But she said that a Black woman called a Black woman a negress, and she said we don't even know what to call them these days, or something I thought was and these all the racist acts you see in the street and on Facebook and everything, that didn't even make me blink. But he was fired the editor-in-chief was fired for that, for accepting that poem. So I'm a little nervous about the title, the N-word, even though I like the title. It's doing the exact work that I wanted to do. I'm a little nervous about submitting with that title.
Well, I'll say this. For this forum, I'm glad you're using the N-word, because they asked us to keep it family friendly.
That's the title, though. I mean, I don't want to use the other word.
It is just N-word, not
Right. I get it, but still, in case you were planning on using it later, please don't.
I get it.
The N-word is neck, but I'm just saying. But with regards to the N-word, to me, it's always been about context, and it should be a word that makes you nervous. Nobody should feel entitled or comfortable when that word is brought out. Just my opinion. Now, do I say you shouldn't say it or have it in your arsenal as a poet? Absolutely not, because I think that's our job, is to make people uncomfortable and to challenge people and to make people nervous and to make people think. So, And those are my 2 cents.
For
Yeah,
this
but I don't want my
poem-
poem to see the trash can.
Well,
and
I was going to say for this poem, it's not referring to the N-word. It's referring to neck. And
Yeah.
so ultimately, when it comes through a submission, okay, let's say, and I've been a reader for journals, it's going to be part of a pack, okay? You know, so when I'm going through that pack, I'll see the title and I'm going to start reading, okay? I'm just going to start reading. We, as a reader, we discover that the N-word is neck, what, by the 3rd line, I think it is? Is that where it is on the page approximately?
Yeah, the 4th. Yes.
4th, see? That's fine. That's a reasonable amount of waiting and suspense if I was a reader for a journal to arrive there. So I don't think that it will prevent you from being read. And I don't think that it's a double entendre. You know, right now, because of the political climate right now, and conversations, exactly as Ray just described, the way, you know, who can or cannot say that word? What is the context of using that word? I think that you're riffing off of that in an intelligent way, responding to, you know, the one of the more recent, you know, cases of police brutality. Okay, so I think that it's relevant. It's a smart use of the word. I don't think you're endangering the poem from seeing the light of day. I think that most readers or journals are going to see how smartly you're executing that.
And let me say this. Let me say, Cole, let me just say this. To people who have always challenged me about the N-word or cussing, I'll say 2 things. Before I publish a book, I'll always take the cursing out. And that's only because I don't want kids who cannot tell the difference between Richard Pryor and Jay-Z to read my work and say, oh, Mr. Raymond used the word N-word, so I'm calling everybody N-word. That's not what I did. You know, that's not what Richard did. You know what I mean? So that's one thing. But the other thing about the N-word is it's not I can say a poem with just 15 N-words in a row. It would not be half as obscene as the tape of George Floyd with the officer kneeling on his neck. That's what people have to understand. You get mad about an N-word, but you're comfortable with watching that tape and what happened on that tape. That's obscene.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely right. Perfect.
So we're running out of time, so we'll let that be the question that I was going to ask. Great question, by the way, Cole.
Thank you.
So you want to go backwards? Would you like to read another poem, Cole, please?
Sure. Rattlesnakes at the border. Working long hours, cicada poets vibrate midnight microphones, and underneath, coyotes yelp in song code, messaging with mariachi music. Listen to the wail. The devil's in the house. Hide in verandas. Slip into the desert. Climate's changed. We're in the valley of death. Sucked back into the Old Testament. Overnight, saguaros grow new arms to lift and surrender, saying, we will never make it to the border, brothers. We have seen rapes of refugees and dehydration termination. The Virgin of Guadalupe and Rosary have no jurisdiction here, but sons of shamans can shapeshift into snakes, while boots of police walk in circles above. Listen to the wail. A siren making muezzins pause in minarets. Buddhists break meditations and Lakotas swear in sweat lodges at the not distant echoes of youth, forcibly removed to off-res schools, braids and native tongues cut off at the roots. Listen to the wail. Black ministers composing sermons, tilt heads 23.5 degrees to the sound of buckboard wheels carrying slave fathers permanently down Delta. Listen to the wail. Guatemalan babies unvelcroed from parents, put into cages like a children's zoo. Unpolished diamondbacks slithering through customs hiss.
That poem,
Wow.
yeah, is fantastic. I love how there's the, how it ends with a hiss when so much of the rest of the poem, you know, is the lament and the moan and so the poem has like almost a dirge-like quality to it, where it's just, you know, running through this tremendous list of, you know, loss and injustice and pain. And so, and then the repetition, and then it ends instead here though on hiss, which is is very threatening at that point, but that's how it ends. Like, so in some ways it's unending. It continues on, you know, because it's right at the edge of the next, you know, attack or escape. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm wondering how many, if any, people of Latino descent that you spoke to, because you've picked out, for lack of a better word, characters, myths, or cultural icons, the Virgin of Guadalupe. Most of my friends don't know who she is, and don't know the protections she offers. So yeah, how did you come across the Latino, I hate to use this word, but jargon that you incorporated into the poem, because it is definitely on point.
You know, I guess I was thinking about, you know, I constantly think about refugees and, you know, their plight. And, you know, even now with COVID-19, as bad as we think we have it, if you are a refugee, if you're stuck at in a border town, it's a disaster. I taught so many Spanish kids, and some of them were refugees. I have a one woman that I know who was trapped at the border for years, and she had to make her way into the United States, doing whatever she could. And you know, I think about those people constantly. As you know, I was an ice cream vendor for many years, and there's so many Guatemalan and you know, other Central American people who are refugees, and they're victims, and even though they're victims and they're trapped here, they are the sweetest people in the world. They're much better people than we are, and it doesn't take much, just maybe just learning a few words in their language to get them to smile and make them very happy. And they're also very, very generous. They give the kids anything they ask for, which made me feel good as an ice cream man, because you know, I was making money. But a lot of times I just give them ice cream, because they're such great people. I also have a Mexican branch of my family, so I think of them as well.
Wow. I could go on, but again, time is dogging us right now. Thank you, Cole.
Thank you.
Professor, if you would bless us with another poem, please.
Sure. I'm going to read a piece I may have read on your, I read it on one of the Sunday night shows. So this poem is after Marty McConnell's poem, which is called The Sacrament of Penance. And I don't think I need to reference anything in the poem before I begin. And this poem is for white people. And it's called How to Use Your White Tears. Boil them. Better yet, build a distilling machine in your new pole barn to extract the saline. Treat them so they're potable and ship by the gallon to Flint, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, Brady. Fill whole tanker trailers. Ask your neighbors for help. Resist the urge to sell it as artesian water. Do not drink your own. Do not spray your Amish paste heirloom tomatoes or the trellises creeping clematis. Do not mistake it for holy water or baptize your young. Do not accept donations. Do not pretend or believe you are the Messiah. Do not try to turn it into wine, and do not whine about how hard it is to make these tears, to wring out the hand-stitched handkerchiefs that your grandmother received as a wedding gift. How some days you feel like you cannot cry anymore. How Steel Magnolias and Stevie Nicks' rendition of Landslide and those YouTube videos of children being reunited with parents returning from deployment won't do it. How it hurts from crying so much and you look like hell, and how can you possibly get anything else done? What will you do in winter? In your barn without a heater, when your beakers and rubber hosing crack, or when the truck delivering your tears breaks down on some mid-American highway and the driver, an Operation Enduring Freedom veteran in recovery, stares at the overheating engine and decides to point the tanker's nozzle at the smoking fuel pump, flooding the whole case, when the valve snaps and the tears won't stop coming, melting the rig's ice lights, the snow-caked tires. This cannot be real, you shout into the receiver, dabbing your swollen eyes with a clean handkerchief. What will you do now that you're out of tears? No, really. Are you ready to claim the worst of your kind, the worst of yourself?
Wow. Cole, your thoughts?
Well, you know, like I was saying, that there you go with the conceit again. How to use your white tears. Who would have thought of that? And then, then the artistry follows after that with all that brilliant imagery, and a lot of the ordinary. Well, in any other case, you use the ordinariness of a lot of those images and physical things like the hand-stitched handkerchief and Stevie Nicks and the Steel Magnolias. The ordinariness of them is what makes the poem pop. Where can I hear that again? Where can I read that again?
I can send you a copy. It's not published yet. I've sent it out. No one's taken it yet.
I think, will.
Right. This is controversial in a kind of way too. You know, you brought up, the Dickman poem in poetry. And I think, you know, the controversy wasn't just that he used some racially charged language. It was the fact that he was a white man that had a poem that spanned 50 pages in a journal, in that journal, and so I'm very conscious that I want Black and brown voices representing what's going on right now. You know, so if this poem doesn't make its way into a journal right now, I'm okay with that. But I'm willing to share it in forums like this so that more people will think about it. As Ray said, you know, we want our work to challenge people. We want our work to, to help people process and think about what they can and should be doing. So, I can send you a copy though, Cole.
Oh, please. And that the Dickman poem, you said 50 pages?
Yeah.
Emery, I think it's important to note, I think like 30 of those pages were blank.
I know. Yeah. There's like two words on, or two lines on a page. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So poetry pays money. Did he get paid for blank pages?
I don't know if he got paid for the blank pages, but he got paid for the pages where there's only like 4 words on the page.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm working for a living. Wow. Great poetry. White tears, boil them. It sounds like you've been hanging around the Black intellectual tent, because that has been our attitude for a long time. Oh my God, here come the white tears. So, and I love how you say, you just break down every scenario. Oh my gosh, I've been crying all day and I look like hell. And, as opposed to what's going on with somebody who lives this life all day, every day. So I like it. It cuts right to the heart. And if they don't accept it as a journal, well, then let me amend what I usually tell my slam poet friends. Everything is not for you to slam or to score a perfect 10 off of. I've had poets read stuff that didn't hit my heart at all, but I've told them, if you're bold enough to go out on stage and share what's really coming from your heart, you will connect with somebody out there. You may not connect with 50 out of 50 people in the room. You might connect with 5. And maybe 5 people really needed to hear, you know, and if it's a diverse poetry reading, the other 45 will get what they came to hear. Something about sex and something about, you know, they didn't get along with their dad, and something about, you know, I was molested, and something about, you know, God is real or God is dead. And, you know, the other 45 will get what they need. But these 5 people really needed, you know, whatever you brought. I would be excited to hear you read that at World Above, though, because I know for a while going to World Above, I just felt like an outsider standing on the rim of the what was really going on. So, yeah. Thank you.
Well, you know, if that poem isn't published, it will be in the 3rd book.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So the world will see it.
Right. It's part of the whole identifying, assimilating, you know, figuring out, you know, where we are, which is both personal and, you know, part of the community and much bigger. It's all of us, you know. So.
Well, I love it.
Thanks, Cole. Thanks, Ray.
All right. And I'm going to end the night. I'm torn between a poem I wrote for Emmett Till or this. I'm going to read this one instead. This is called One More Poem. And as soon as I finish it, I'm going to wish I had read the other one. But anyway, here we go. One more poem. This poem is dedicated to the people. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. This poem is dedicated to the people that do not know how to stop, like myself. To the people that ask for one more poem before retiring for the night and turning off the air conditioning to enjoy a bedtime snack before they turn in. Just a reminder, it's up to each one of us to make sure our privilege is actually a blessing. You want one more poem, but I'm asking you to join me in doing the math. When we were watching a 14-year-old girl and her mother carrying a car seat through the streets, adding up all the math problems this teen mother will face before 21, if she makes 21. I'm worried about whether she's going to survive the C-section and why she would keep going to a doctor trying to sell her a C-section. But we don't live in the world that she lives in. We don't live in the world that she's imagined in her mind. In her mind, she'll stay with her mom for the next 4 years till she gets her diploma and secretly continue to sneak and see him on the side. But in the real world, her mother moves the crib up out of my hallway and into your room, because you're going to be the one feeding and diapering, changing early mornings. And look, that's your responsibility. In the real world, her man now appears and disappears like the ghost villain on Scooby-Doo, and she has no idea her own father cries in the arm of her mother every night with disappointment. Let me ask you, how many poems can we get from this situation? You want one more poem? My Aunt Bev cooks every meal with love, but not enough greens. She cooks with too much starch. She loves on the pork as it heats on her kitchen stove. As she sings and she seasons it, she prays over it before she serves it to my cousins. And from the cereal with the purple panda bear they eat in the morning to the last dessert they have before bed, they have eaten almost nothing but heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes. So believe me, the prayer is very needed. You want one more poem? I need a hug. I was the firstborn. I've been responsible for every act of God in my home since 1974. No matter what happens in my family, I have to fix it. But no one can ever hear me when I hurt. No one hears me when I choke down my tears. I shove the pain down that makes me cry. I check to make sure I'm alone before I think about my father and how it's my fault he's not here. No, I did not make him grow old. No, I did not tax his heart any more than any other son. No, I did not write the rules to death and life. But when I look into men's fashion stores where we should be shopping together or watching TV we should be watching together, I ask myself over and over again, what did I miss? Why wasn't I able to fix this act of God this time? How did I drop the ball on my watch? Every time somebody tells me, Ray, your dad would be proud, I try to tell myself I didn't totally fail my dad when he needed me the most. So you want one more poem? Here's your poem. I pray for every 13-year-old boy and girl that you survive being the beautiful age of 13 with the most minimal damage to your future. You definitely want some when I was 13 stories to tell your grands, but you definitely are not going to meet the love of your entire life in the 6th grade. And I pray for everyone that is living in fear of COVID and gun violence and Black people and is a casualty of their very own diet. America been sacrificing health for money since before I was born. So you call me when there's a government shutdown on racism and police brutality. Call me when there's a daily update of the numbers of people that die from smoking and pollution. I pray for my Aunt Bev that hates the COVID and loves CNN updates. Tells me Trump is killing America as she puffs her 3rd Newport of the morning and sips orange-flavored Mountain Dew. I pray that God will give me a poem one day that feels like peace like a river. But for right now, I have to make it on the faith that my father left me.
That was gorgeous, Ray. I love, well, one of the first lines I loved was the world that she's imagined in her mind. That was a gorgeous line. And then we get to, I'm the firstborn, and every, what was the line? Every natural disaster. Yeah, every act of God. Oh, that was so stunning. I've been responsible for. And then how it repeats later on, So in the next, act of God, I'm not responsible. That was so powerful. And I love how the poem sort of cycles through all of these young people's stories in some capacities, in terms of what one needs at that time. But then it also branches out to the aunt's existence too. So it's examining all the ways in which we're carrying so much hurt and suffering, and sometimes adding additional hurt and suffering, and not necessarily having, both the people to turn to, or even to have the people to go back to even say, I hope that I pulled this off. So that's a really stunning family poem. I feel that deeply.
Well, I haven't written enough about my relationship with my father, but the last part about being responsible for every act of God, real quickly, I can remember watching Michael Jackson's funeral with my dad, and Jackie was saying, Mike, you weren't supposed to go first. I was supposed to go first. And, I've taken care of you all your life. And the only friends who get it are other firstborn kids like me. And then I can remember being at another friend of mine's funeral after my dad's funeral, and the three of us were together saying, you know, if the doctor would have came out and said, listen, you get us $5,000, we'll bring your dad out. He'll be just like he was before. He'll be singing and getting on your nerves. I didn't have no $5,000, but I would have made a way, because that's what I've done all my life. But that wasn't an option. And so to this day, I lay up at night and wonder, what did I miss? Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Cole.
You know, what I got from that is, Ray, that first of all, I love the refrain, the one more poem, how you keep repeating that. And you know what I get from that is, you're telling people to stop the judging and slow down and look what you're doing yourself. And as far as your father is concerned, when you feel responsible for your father's death, what I get from that is, I get more from that than what the audience would get, because I've met your father. I've seen him at the poetry events, how he would just slide in.
Too.
Hmm?
I said, I believe Emery's met him too.
Oh yeah. So I mean the audience, but how he would just slide in sometimes in the middle of the event, because he wanted to be there, because he wanted to be with you. And I think the audience would get that you are regretting because you caused your father's death. What I get from that is not that you caused your father's death, because you didn't. You loved your father. He loved you. You had a great relationship, much better than I had with my father. What I get from that is you want to slow down, and you just want one more poem with your father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. That might have been what I was saying subconsciously.
Yeah.
I think what I was saying consciously is, slow down and prize what you have. Be thankful. If we're not going to look at certain things seriously, just be thankful for what we have.
Yeah, Trump isn't responsible for everything. You're responsible for a lot of it as well. Right.
And yeah, so I will let it go because we have 2 minutes left. So okay. I don't want them to say the one black guy they got to host to curate an event went over.
Well, I'm tired. I'm so glad to see you both of you, two of my greatest friends in poetry. But I'm tired of seeing miniaturized versions of my friends.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I hope this changes soon, and we can all powwow very soon at World Above, or wherever the next place that we're going to meet is going to be. Michael, are you there? Are you near here?
I'm sure he's there.
Okay, I just don't want to sign off into dead space. Oh, he says he's here. Okay, so on behalf of 48 blocks, one more time, I'd like to thank everyone who tuned in. Thank you to Elijah, Lisa, and somebody else in the chat. I missed your name, and I only have a minute, so I only have a chance to go back. But thank you all for listening. Melissa, that was hard. And thank you, Cole. Thank you, Emery. Thank you, Michael. And I'll turn it back over to Michael for the rest of 48 blocks. Thank you so much. Had a great time.
Love you both.
Love you.
Love
Have
you.
a great weekend. Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Be safe.
Bye.
Be safe.